even if you don't know what it means, you know it's something there in what that motherfucker's saying. We can see this not being allowed to pass wealth when we look at Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi said he went to Oprah Winfrey, he went to Farrakhan, he went to Bill Cosby. There's only one problem with the people that he went to. They all know the rule. They can do things to help one another, but they can't pass wealth in large quantity. Every one of them, be it Farrakhan, be it Oprah, be it Bill Cosby, be it Dr. Sebi, have to start from where they at, build on what they have until they get what they got. They can help poor and downtrodden people, but they cannot help another light shine. Every light must work and struggle for its own shine. That's over with. Now, as of July the 4th of this year, when the contract was up, we can help each other shine now. That means that all of that part of the curse that had us stuck under divide and conquer, we can rip the veil off of that now. We can show how the divide and conquer was holding us back and holding us down, and we don't have to fall for it no more. We can show that now. Before, we wasn't allowed to openly address the divide and conquer within our community. So when you go back and you look at Malcolm and Martin, you go back and look at Du Bois and Garvey, they look like they was, at odds in ideology. That's because they couldn't address the divide and conquer. The only way to address that divide and conquer, you have to show them that you're on the same page, and that would have caused total destruction for us. Because you had the ambitious of them like George Herbert Walker Bush and his sons, and you had Henry Kissinger, and you had all of these popes trying to keep us from, So all of these people was trying to keep us from regaining our birthright. Now, they talked about the white man's burden. Now, Rudyard Kipling wrote the poem of the white man's burden. And to simplify what it is, without having to go through the whole poem, is the white man's burden was originally written by a Catholic pope that said it was the job of every good God-fearing Catholic white man to go into the villages of the savages, those who are not white, and to teach them the doctrine of Christianity and the Christ and coming of the returning of the Lord in the day of judgment. That was the white man's burden. And the poem is read on, you can get it on YouTube. You can listen to The White Man's Burden by Rudyard Kipling. Now, the biggest movement of the white man burden, so to speak, is there's a guy by the name of John Cecil Rhodes, who was sent into the African Republic of the Congo by King Leopold. And this is where you get your Rhodes scholars like William Jefferson Clinton. And this is how you know who is absolutely all in with the genetic annihilation of people that look like us. These Rhodes scholars, you can't trust them. They all come from the same school of thought. Surveillance teaching? No, that's not divide and conquer. Don't work like that. The biggest tool that they use was called Hellenism, where they take your leadership. The leadership that's for the people, like Larry Hoover, Jeff Ford, Demetrius Holloway, or what's old name out there in California? Orlando something. Ricky Ross. These dudes that pull themselves up by their bootstraps, we look at them in our community as our leaders. We look at the ones that came from where we came from, walked on the ground we walked on as our leaders. The masses of us we see, we can identify more with Tupac than we can with Barack Obama, because we love Barack Obama, but we know Tupac came from where we came from. We know that he came from the gutter like us. We know that he came from the bottom of the barrel like us. So fuck what Barack talking about and his change that didn't never come. The change didn't never come that he promised y'all. He stayed in there 8 years and didn't bring no change. I'm not gonna touch on that, Kenan, that um, telekinesis and telepathic message sending. It's a little bit more involved in that, and that's take me off the where is these um, fallen angels at? The ones who made it with humans. I'm trying to tell you how to identify them. So now, when you read the Hymn Tablets of Thoth, when you read the Hymn Tablets of Thoth, it say, if the light is in you, the information in this book will respond. But if the light not in you, then the information won't. What the fuck is Thoth talking about? What in the hell is Thoth talking about? He said if the light is in you, the information in this book will respond. But if it's not in you, it won't. It won't respond. You won't respond to this information. Because Thoth knew there was different strains of people on Earth. And everybody not on the same level. But you have what they call the light strain, or the starborn, the earthborn star child. Now, you can find star child skeletal remains all over the world. I had a boss at Orion named Jason. Jason's son had hydrocephaly. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about hydrocephaly is most of those are star seeds. Now, the general treatment is to put a shunt in the brain in order to relieve the cerebral spinal fluid from building up the pressure. Never knowing that the cause of the pressure in the first place is you have two pumps. You have one that your medulla pump, and then you have another one that your sacrum pump. These two pumps work together to move cerebral spinal fluid up and down your spine and through the brain. Just like the heart, the brain has 4 ventricles. Just like the heart, the brain pumps. When the brain is not pumping, the fluid in the brain becomes stagnant. What happened to old mop water when you sit around? It gets stale and stinky. What's going to happen to that fluid that's stagnant in the brain? It's going to start to develop, it's going to start to break down. The body has to break it down. As it starts to break that fluid down, because of the amount of fluid in there's capacity, there's nowhere for it to go. It's nowhere for it to go in this deteriorated state, so it tries to go into the brain. But the brain will only accept so much. This is what they call the swelling. This is the encephalia. And the water that's causing the encephalia is the water of the cerebral spinal fluid, which is your hydro. So now you understand hydroencephalia, what it comes from. Well, what's the remedy? If people knew, what most doctors know by about 6 months, that a woman's baby have early signs of hydrocephalia, that can also come out as a opening at the base of the spine, as I forget the name of it, but it's an opening at the base of the spine that they're born with, spinal bifida. So when the encephalia is set in, one of the pumps not working. One of the pumps not working, which has to deal with, well, we ain't even got to the equilibrium yet, because we talking about fetal development in the brain function. One of the pumps aren't functioning yet. So if only one pump's functioning, then it's only partially pumping, which is building up the pressure in the brain in utero. See, now the doula different. The difference in the doula and obstetrician is this: when the doula discovered that the baby has signs of hydroencephalia, they're going to give certain herbs to the mother, and they're going to do certain massages on her abdomen to try to get the baby's pumping mechanism stimulated so that the hydroencephalia can be relieved even before the baby born. There's a difference between doctors and doulas. The doula has been termed a midwife now, and her role has been downplayed by modern medical society because they don't want you to know that the doula is more important than the doctor. The doula is only matched in importance by a mother, because the mother is the only one that's going to be the nurse after she's left the doula. Now, the doula center, where you have doulas rearing children, they prenatal care is all about counseling, and they normally, most of the counseling is for the young mothers who never had a child before, but they never stop being in the person that's their patient's life. They become like a lifelong parent priest. So they have to go through specialized training like a psych, a doctor, a nurse, and a counselor. So in their training, they have to know so much stuff. But these things that we not being told can affect how our children be developed. Now, let's get back into, we done went through the electromagnetic body, we done went through the genetic body. The physical body, how do you tell? Well, the physical body normally has a muscular physique, just naturally muscular physique. Those, some people have to work to develop it, and some people just born with some extra stuff. You could just look at them. They never lifted a weight, but they look like a bodybuilder. They got that. They gotta have the blood. Now, the difference in the guys being ripped up like that, never working out, is the difference in this. Like, you'll see one of them, look at a pygmy or a Zulu or a Watusi in Africa or a native over here. When you look at the body structure, the muscle development is there in most of those tribes, but it's not as how would you say, defined. The muscle tone is not as defined. The separation in the muscles are not as great in this group of people naturally without exercise or working out, anything of that nature. So if so now we got to look at the physical body. They pretty tall. They almost always over 6 feet tall. Especially the men. Not necessarily the women, but the men. Especially the men. The men are normally over 6 feet tall, 6'2", 6'3", and up. And that's because the women that they were mating with were under 5 feet tall. So you had 7, 8 feet tall dudes, and you have 4, 5 foot and under women, 3.5 to 5 foot women. So you're gonna end up producing as the child of the guy's gonna be between 5'10" and 6'10". Some of them can exceed that if they have more of the guy gene, what they call the giant gene. Now, when you get into the genome and you want to know what extraterrestrial trait something is, you can look it up. You can find out the name of the trait, and then you can find out the description given of an alien. Like a Saurian or a Syrian from Sirius, their description is reptilian. They look like a human covered in snake scales. That's the description given for them. This trait can be found in science is several different traits in varying degrees. The worst is the ichthyosis. Then you going into your psoriasis and your eczemas. Exacerbating those because we know the majority of reptiles are they can't tolerate dairy products. So when you put the dairy product in, it'll make your skin disorder worse. That means that the gene is dominantly Syrian. Now, the mammalian gene is a Usurian Earth hybrid gene from what you would call, yes, eczema. Eczema is one of the reptilian traits that's in the human that's traceable. It's traceable to Sirius. Um, the which one was I on next? Oh, the mammalian gene, the monkey gene. What we don't know is, just like we look and we see the Pegasus constellation, the Leo constellation, and we see the dog star and all that. Well, where we in is what they call the Rhesus constellation or the monkey constellation, depending on which galactic language you're translating out of it. It's either the Sirius or the monkey. Not Sirius, Simeon, or the monkey constellation. And the symbol for it is a giant monkey that you see down in South Central America in the Nazca lines. That's the symbol for this star system we in before it was ever visited by the strangers, the visitors. The first ones to come was the Usurians, which was through Anu, that was Enki's bloodline. They were the first males here. Males didn't exist on Earth or Venus before the Usurians came, and then they had to find a female that Mother Earth, or what they called her then Tiamat, would accept as a ruler, because a man wasn't allowed to rule because of the birthright of the mitochondrial gave rulership a certain level according to the mitochondrial rights. So when we all start over the last few thousands of years intermingling, then it got turned up in the 1500s to now. And the goal was, America was created to be the great melding pot. What does that mean? Go back in your history books and find it, and find out what does the great melding pot mean. Right? Once you understand that, then you need to ask yourself, why is there a one drop of blood doctrine, and what does it mean? Why is there a one drop of blood doctrine, and what does it mean? Now, the doctrine says one drop of black blood makes you black. So look at that and analyze it. So we look at some white guys or some white girls and say they act like they black. They must be a wigger. They just might be a nigger that you think not, because they are of the lighter shade. They got one drop of blood. Genetic correction. They didn't have a right to a sin without a genetic correction. Now go back to your book, Revelations in the 5th chapter. It said that Christ gave his blood for every nation and tongue. Unrestricted, that he gave his blood. So everybody now had a right to a sin according to what the book says. It's in Revelations chapter 5. He gave his blood for every nation and every tongue. Right? And so that had to clean up. Now, we ran into a problem. Some of the Moors and some of the Africans objected. And they didn't want to participate in cleaning up the genetics because they felt like they didn't have no parts in that dirt, and it shouldn't be their responsibility to clean it up. So what ended up happening was, because they didn't take pride in the dirt, what you call the motherland